Hello and welcome to another midweek episode of the Sun's Solar Panel. As always, I'm your host, Dave King. I hope everyone's doing okay today. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. This is our midweek episode where it's just going to be audio only. So get your friends, tell your friends about this episode. Make sure they're subscribed to the show. As you guys remember, we had a little bit of a split up on solar panel, and you guys got to sign up and tell your friends to sign up for the new show that's on this feed coming in your ears through the podding forms. Solar panel. It's always free. You don't have to pay a dime for it. It's always fresh. And it's always presented by the Basketball Podcast Network. We do a live interactive show every Saturday. I do that with Zona Hoops. And then midweeks like this one. Today, I have a special guest, a huge guest, really good friend of mine, does the Suns Jam Session podcast, the best post game podcast out there by far. And I want to welcome in on Twitter. He's Darth Voita. I know him as John Voita. How's it going, man?
Fantastic. How you doing, Dave? It's been a while since we've chopped it up about the Suns.
I know, right? You've got your own podcast. I got my own podcast. Usually podcasters don't team up in the same market because everyone hears them anyway. But you know what? You're such a good friend. I wanted to be able to do this.
I'm touched, Dave. I'm truly touched.
If you're listening, make sure at the end of the show you leave us a 5-star review if you're so inclined. I'm building up new reviews on the feed as well. And if you leave me a comment on your 5-star review that is in there in the apps or whatever it is, I will give you a special shout out on a future show. So, John, why do I have you on today's show? Well, I have you on today's show as you are about to release an article on brightsideofthesun.com. It's coming out on Thursday. That'll be December 9th. That the Suns have already had their best calendar year in franchise history. Tell us about this thing.
Yeah, so I was, kind of bored the other day, and I started crunching some numbers and going through the annals of Phoenix Suns history because I thought, is this the best calendar year for the Phoenix Suns? We know that this has been one of the best seasons going back to the 2020-2021 season because for the third time ever in franchise history, we ended up in the NBA Finals. And, you see some tweets out there about how great this Suns team has been since the bubble itself back in 2020. And I was like, well, obviously last season wasn't the best season ever relative to winning percentage or total wins. Those go to the 2004/5 Suns and the 1992/3 Suns, who both had 62 wins and 20 losses. So what I pretty much started doing is going through Basketball Reference and going by calendar year, starting in 1968.
You
Where
did this manually.
I did this manually. The Suns played
That's
a total.
dedication, man.
Yeah, well, like I'm on site. I'm going to different places and restaurants, kind of on the West Coast for my company, and there's some downtime while I'm waiting for those IT guys to get their job done. I don't know if you know anything about those IT guys, but when you're
Those
sitting
IT
there,
guys.
while you're sitting there waiting them to ping different restaurant printers, you start, just trying to find ways to kill your time. So back in 1968, the first season for the Phoenix Suns, they played a total of 38 games. And then the calendar turned to 1969 and they began playing, in that year. But, for those first 38 games, the team was 8-30, which is 21.1% of a winning percentage. I was just like, wow, that was a bad year. I wonder as I go through this if I'm going to find any teams that were worse than that calendar year, and if there's any teams that were better than my perceived calendar year of probably like 93. I was thinking 93 or 07 were probably the best calendar years to be a Phoenix Suns fan because that's the world, as normal operating humans, unless you're working on a fiscal budget, you go January 1st to December 31st. That's your year.
Yeah, so let's talk about 93 real quick. Let's remind people why
Mhm.
we think 93. Of course, they remember the finals appearance in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're talking calendar year, the finals is dead in the middle of that. So
And
you're
that
talking
counts.
about, yeah, it counts. Of course it does. But it right dead in the middle of that calendar year, but you've got half of the prior season and half of the next season. So
Precisely.
that's what makes this such a unique bit of analysis. And we do base a lot of our thinking on calendar years, and then we have to remind ourselves, oh, that's the 21-22 season or the 92-93 season. But you're talking about the calendar year 1993 versus calendar year 2021, and we still have 3 weeks left in this one.
Yeah. So the reason I thought 93 was probably the greatest calendar year for Phoenix Suns, and when you look at total wins, that is correct. They had 75 total wins in 1993 if you include their regular season at the back end of 93, the regular season at the front end of 94, and their finals run. That's why I thought, okay, that's probably the best year because they had a final run in there. You gain a lot of wins as you march to the finals. They went 13-11 in those playoffs, which ultimately kind of brought down their overall winning percentage because overall in that year they went 75-32, which is good for 70.1 winning percentage. So I was on to something. I was like, okay, I'm close here. So then I painstakingly just went year by year, adding, going to Basketball Reference, highlighting the last game of 2000 or 2002, and then starting 2003, and then adding it only took like 45 minutes, but at the same time, it was interesting the data that was kind of born from this analysis.
Did you actually do every year, or did you just look for the best years?
Every year. I've got every year. The data sitting right in front of me. I like data. I mean, I'm a food and beverage director, so I like to overanalyze my menus, see what's selling, see what's not selling, identify what my dogs are, identify what my puzzles are, identify what my plow horses are, and identify, what my stars are. So I'll go through data, and you've seen me do this in the past. I'll go through data painstakingly to come to just to find out, kind of how things are operating, and then from there you can make decisions and make analyzations like this, where I was like, hey, 2021, as of right now, as of December 8th, when we record this, is from a percentage standpoint, the best year in Phoenix Suns history. We have 81 total wins. So we've crushed the 1993 team, which is the second most that has 75. So we're already
6 more wins.
Precisely. And the same amount of losses. We had 32 losses in 1993. We've had 32 total losses in 2021. If the Suns go 8-3 for the remainder of this month, they will surpass the greatest team win percentage wise, which is the year of 2007, when the Suns went 71, or they had 71.6% wins. Right now we're at 71.7.
Right. So and how good do the Suns have to be the rest of the month to be able to stay at that 7-17 or higher?
8-3.
8-3. So okay, so let's let's take a moment and look at the Suns' schedule coming up, and both of us are going to be scrambling right now because I pivoted right in the middle of the podcast, which is always really good planning, If we come up with something we weren't thinking about talking about right in the middle of a podcast, it goes very well.
We got it.
So the Suns have to go 8-3 the rest of the month. What does the rest of their month schedule look like?
Well, they start off with Boston, which is on Friday, which I believe can be a W. Boston's kind of scrambling right now, just like we were, to look for the schedule. And, they're a team that's kind of in the middle right now, truly don't understand their identity the same way that the Phoenix Suns do. After that, they're
the
on
Lakers just beat Boston for a quote-unquote signature win.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
and the Suns are going to be nice and rested for this game. So, of course, because of all of these data points and all these reasons why they should beat them, they'll end up losing to them. But in theory, they should beat Boston.
That's old Suns. This is the Chris Paul Suns that are 11-1 in the clutch this year. Doesn't matter how bad they play the first 3 quarters.
But then they go at the Los Angeles Clippers, at the Portland Trailblazers. They're back home for the Wizards and the Hornets. They have a game on the road at the Lakers, and then it's home for the Thunder, the Warriors on Christmas Day, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they finish the year in Boston at TD Garden.
Yeah. So so you've got a league right now that has an unbelievable number of teams with right around 500 records. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's like the NFL right now. Everybody's stuck in the
9, 10.
Cardinals are on top.
10 teams within one game of 500. and another 5 teams or so within 2 or 3 games of 500. It's crazy. There's only 6 teams in the league that are more than 4 games over 500 right now after 24 games. And that's the Brooklyn Nets, Chicago Bulls, and Milwaukee Bucks in the East. And then the Golden State Warriors, Phoenix Suns, Utah Jazz, and Memphis Grizzlies are at 14 and 10. The seventh best team in the league, the Memphis Grizzlies, who somehow are on a big winning streak without John Morant in their lineup. Does
Ewing
that make
theory.
Jaren Jackson the best pick of the
Oh,
2018
he's
draft now?
clearly. I think you should double max him if you can. Do it right now. He's clearly the best player ever drafted ever in the
Well,
history of time.
so you got DeAndre Ayton, who's been to the finals by the end of his 3rd year. Luka Doncic, who is basically the white James Harden.
Mm-hmm.
You've got
Trae
you've
Young.
got Trey Young, and of course Jaren Jackson. Now that his team is 4-0 in December, I mean it's pretty incredible. So I think the Memphis being the 7th best team in the NBA right now shows how kind of weak the whole league is, and yet the Suns and the Warriors are the clear class of the league at 20 and 4 each. So the ability of the Suns to go 8 and 3 the rest of this month after they've already gone 2 and 1 without Devin Booker in the lineup, and they were undefeated without DeAndre Ayton in the lineup for 6 games. I think that bodes well for the Suns' ability to finish 8 and 3 this month.
And as you mentioned, of all of those top tier teams, the Suns are going to play 2 of them, just 2 of them in this last run. They play, like I mentioned, the Golden State Warriors on Christmas, and then their next game, also at home, is against those Memphis Grizzlies and the vaunted Jaren Jackson Jr. So, it's the stars are aligning for this team to finish.
Oh, I feel like I just lost you. I can't hear you at all. You are frozen. Yes, the stars are aligning for the Suns to finish the 2021 calendar year with the best winning percentage in team history at over 71.7%. That's just crazy. I am going to drop Darth Voida out of here, and we are going to see if he can come back in at some point. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue talking to fill in the void here. I'm going to leave a long pause so that on the recording we can get this back, and I'll just bring him back in.
Goddamn hotel Wi-Fi. Telling you.
All right. Let's see. Let's pick up where we left off, and I'll of course I'll do the editing on the audio. Better reason not to put this up on YouTube. So, looks like the Suns for the rest of the month looks like they have a pretty good chance of going 8. Let me just do a pause.
Yep.
So it looks like the Suns have a really good chance to go 8 and 3 or better for the rest of the month if the only opponents that they've got in there that are among the top 7 in the league, among teams that are more than a couple of games over 500, are Memphis and Golden State toward the end of the month.
Yeah, and if that's the case, if they can do this from a winning percentage standpoint, Suns fans, the calendar year of 2021, since the ball dropped on Times Square. I don't remember if people were allowed to be there this year for it. I mean, that's how crazy this year has been personally for all of us. 2020, 2021, tumultuous years for everyone personally throughout the entire world. And during this stretch, we are witnessing the greatest basketball this team has ever put forth. And we know that because they just put together an 18-game win streak at the beginning of the 2021 season, and we've experienced that as well. So, part of doing this research and analyzation is just to be appreciative of what we've experienced. That's what sparked this entire kind of trend for me and this journey I went on, and going painstakingly through the 54 seasons of the Phoenix Suns basketball reference pages. Was I know I'm experiencing something special right now, and the data backs that up. It's not only special, it's historic what we're seeing. And it's
Doesn't
crazy
it still
because go ahead.
I was just going to say, doesn't it still seem like, though, that this is so sudden that it's impossible for this to actually be the best team? And it seems like hyperbole, not hyperbole, as I always read it before I heard it out loud.
You're like, what
Hyperbole.
is that? French? What are they saying? Hyperbole?
Hyperbole? It's like Hermione. All right. So, anyway, hyperbole. It feels like hyperbole to say this is the best Suns team ever when the Phoenix area, Valley Sports, we have such fond memories of the 93 season with Charles Barkley coming in here, 92-93 season as the league MVP. He won league MVP. The Suns had the best record in the league, 62-20. They blasted through the playoffs to get to the finals. They got 14 wins in the playoffs, just like this year's 2021 team did. 14 wins in the playoffs, and that was just an incredible season. We remember that with such fondness. That was a dominant team, and yet somehow this Phoenix Suns team, even with now they played a little bit later into the year as far as calendar time this year than the 93 team did because of the late start to the season because of COVID. Yet the season was 10 less games. And so as you can see, as John's going to put up on a chart in the article in Brightside, that Suns team in 1993 won 75 games, 14 of those being in the playoffs, against 32 losses in the calendar year of 1993. This Suns team already has 81 wins against 32 losses, the same number of losses as you mentioned a few minutes ago, John. So there has been a few more games played as available to win in 2021 versus 1993, but that just gives you more chances to lose. And the Suns have already, by far, won the most games in any calendar year ever at 81 wins in the calendar year. I mean, I keep pointing out on Brightside that the Suns have the most wins in the NBA since the bubble started in July of 2020. They have the most wins in the NBA since the 2021 season started. They have the most wins in the NBA since February 1st, of 2021 this year. They have the most wins in the NBA since since the All-Star break. And now they have the most wins in the NBA, tied with the Golden State Warriors at the moment for wins in this current season. Under any measure, this Suns team is incredible.
Mm-hmm. And we
Why
keep
is
finding
it? Why do
statistics.
you think it is that maybe people are still going to be hesitant to call this one of the all-time great teams?
Well, I'll answer that question here in a second. I'm going to go back to a couple things that you said. One, it does feel shockingly quick for this team to have such a turnaround, and that's probably why a lot of us are dazed and confused, because the 2018 Phoenix Suns, the calendar year of 2018, statistically was the worst season, or the worst year, I'm sorry, the worst calendar year in Phoenix Suns history. They went 16-66 in that calendar year and won 19.5% of their games, which is worse than that 8-30, 21.1% of the inaugural 1968 Phoenix Suns. That's part of this.
16 and 66 in
16
the
and
calendar
66 in
year of
2018.
2018. I remember us writing an article about that on Brightside.
Yes, I mean,
Worst
it's
year in
ever.
franchise history.
And, smack dab in the middle of that, that's when you drafted DeAndre Ayton. That's when you drafted Mikal Bridges, and the turnaround slowly happened. You saw that in 2019 as they started to gain more wins. Ricky Rubio's added to the fray. And then by 2020, we're kind of right in the middle of Phoenix Suns history with their total number of wins and their winning percentage up over 60% once Chris Paul kind of joins the back end of that. So there's that side of it. It's so sudden. It's almost like being punched in the face, and your nose is kind of ringing, your eyes are blurred because you're like, what's happening? It's happened so quick. Going back to the 1993 team, and the reason we feel that was so dominant is, you got to remember, for anyone who's like under 35, 1992-93 doesn't mean shit to them anymore. Part of my Franche. But they're just
If
too
they
young
were
to
even
truly
right.
but they're just too young to truly understand what that moment meant, not only to the Phoenix Suns, but to the city of Phoenix overall. I mean, for the most part, up to that point, the city of Phoenix was a wide spot in the road on the way to Los Angeles. And when Charles Barkley came to Phoenix, it created this hysteria of success. It created this hysteria of pop culture. I mean, all of a sudden we had the most charismatic member of the dream team playing for the Phoenix Suns. And you take that and it takes you back to, probably like whatever music you were listening to when you were about 17 is the music you're going to love for the rest of your life. And for a lot of people, that's what that moment felt like. And they'll always love that team for what it meant to them. They have that emotional connection to that 93 team. And it's clear, and according to the data, it's clear why they had that connection to them, because of how successful they were. You look at the 2007 Suns, and a lot of people who are a little bit younger, than 35, they experienced the 7 seconds or less Suns. And that 2007 team that went 68 and 27 throughout that calendar year, and has the 71.6% winning percentage in that year, they share the same kind of affinity for them because it was just so successful. So you have those two different eras, if you will, as reasons that people are emotionally connected to those teams. Why is it that this team is the most successful? It's because I've never seen a Phoenix Suns team play defense the way that this team plays defense. I mean, the way that they can tighten the screws is remarkable. You see that on Monday night when they played the Spurs. I mean, they go up big. They go up by like 15 or 16 points on the Spurs. They let the Spurs come all the way back and tie the game at 88. They're kind of waffling back and forth in the fourth quarter. And when it hits 5 minutes, the team defense becomes extraordinary, and they're jumping past lanes, they're
And their offensive
switching.
execution on the
Well,
other
and that's the other side of this is inside 5 minutes. I've never seen a team that has an identity that is successful like it is right now, because there's so many different options. You go back to 92-93, like you knew it was KJ and Barkley time. You go back to 2004, the 7 seconds or less Suns, 2004 2010, you knew it was Nash and Amari time. In this offense right now, because Devin Booker's injured, it's Chris Paul time. But when Devin Booker's there, you have a two-headed dragon coming at you. And if you try to switch or double any of them, they're switching to the other guy. They have unbelievable three-point shooters, and you have the big guy down low who's mopping up any misses. He's right there, and he's putting them back, and he's playing aggressive in those last 5 minutes. So you have kind of this perfect storm of identity and defense and offensive execution, not only in the last 5 minutes, but at the beginning of the game, throughout spurts in the game. I mean, if you were to ask me, have we seen the Suns play a complete game yet this season? I'd say no. And we're 20-4.
Right.
I mean, that alone, it's just one of those things. Like, we might not have the emotional connection to these teams because we analyze them as much as we do. We write about them, we podcast about them. So we're very analytical of their performance. But I bet you for a lot of kids around Phoenix, Arizona, they love this team because this is their first baptism into everything that is Phoenix Suns and purple and orange.
So let's talk about this for a second. As far as them being great in the clutch, I'm not sure people quite understand. The numbers just seem so crazy. I'm not sure that people quite understand how crazy they are. So the Phoenix Suns are 11 and 1 in the clutch this year. And then after that, I want to go into the the star of the team and all that. But right now, let's talk about clutch. The Phoenix Suns are number one in the clutch this year. They're 11-1 overall. They only have one loss this year. They finished 20-5 in the clutch last year during this calendar year after they had about an uneven start as you can get in the clutch when they started 8-8 in the first 16 games together with Chris Paul. Basically, they've won 36 of their last 42 clutch opportunities. What does that mean? Well, how are they doing it? They're not just eking it out. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, and Jay Crowder are the top 4 players in the whole league at plus minus in the clutch. Chris Paul's a plus 55 in the clutch this year alone, plus 55 points in 34 minutes. Chris Paul's been on the floor in the clutch for 34 minutes this year. He is already a plus 55 in points over the other team. That dude is just incredible. And you saw it Monday night. He executed perfectly every single offensive possession that he wanted to. The only failures they had is when a teammate missed an easy shot or an open shot or committed a turnover. But Chris Paul has just been sublime in the clutch. Mikal Bridges, a plus 49 in those 34 minutes. Jay Crowder, plus 45 in those 34 minutes. Devin Booker has played 2 fewer clutch games because he's missed a couple with the injury. He's only, quote unquote, a plus 38 in 27 minutes. So if you put him up to the 34 minutes that Chris Paul is, he'd be right there, right next to Chris Paul. But now he's only 4th, quote unquote, on the team at a plus 38 in 27 clutch minutes. DeAndre Ayton has missed also 6 games. Some of those are in the clutch. He's only played 8 clutch games. Devin Booker's played 9 clutch games. And so DeAndre Ayton only has 24 minutes in the clutch. He's a plus 35. Guess what? It's because these guys all play together. And DeAndre Ayton is tied for 7th in the league in total plus minus points in the clutch this year, total. And yet those 34 minutes, I'm talking 34 minutes, 27 minutes, 24 minutes that these guys have played in the clutch, you would think they're the best plus minus differentials because they play the most clutch minutes. That's not actually true. At 34 minutes, the most clutch minutes of any Phoenix Sun, guess how low down, where does that rank in total clutch minutes played this year? John, give me your best guess.
I'll say 11th.
How about 55th?
Jeez, I wasn't even close.
54 players have played more clutch minutes than anyone on the Phoenix Suns this year. And the Suns are the top 4 and 5 of the top 7 players in point differential in the clutch this year. And they've played less than 55 other players' clutch minutes.
It's unbelievable. Crazy? It's unbelievable. And you look at it from a team standpoint, they're shooting.
Wait. I got to I'm a little late on this. I've got to throw it out there because I got to give myself credit for this.
Is this a stat me?
Go? Yeah, where did it go? Oh, here we go.
Dang, stat me.
Double stat.
Got a double stat. That was it's just amazing how good these guys are in the clutch. 55 players have played more clutch minutes than they have. Nobody has more positive point differential in the clutch.
Well, and as a team, they're shooting 66.7%. They're making 2 out of every 3 shots they take in the clutch. That's part of it. And here's what's also interesting. In clutch time moments, they are last in the league in 3-point attempts. They shoot 1.3 3-point attempts in clutch time minutes. They're making 0.7 of them, so that's 50%. They're shooting from 3, which is tops in the league, but they're taking the fewest amount. And I think that that's something that is driving the analytic people absolutely bonkers because they're like, well, threes. But as you can see, when the moments go to those clutch time moments, the Phoenix Suns execute their offense, and they're attacking the rim and they're attacking the mid-range, which is, where analytic people are telling you don't go there. But that's where, because everybody has become so accustomed to defending the perimeter, that's where they're navigating and finding their open shots. They're also fourth in the league in clutch time free throw attempts. Now, I'd like them to shoot better at the free throw line. They're only shooting 69%, and that's something that
fourth in clutch time free throws. That means they're
yes.
being aggressive and getting to the line when you've got to have points on every possession. And when you're doing the 2-pointers over the 3-pointers, yes, 3 points get you more points, right? It's obvious. But you're only likely to make that shot 30 to 35% of the time in the clutch. Whereas on 2-point shots, the Suns are shooting 60, 70% in the clutch on twos. I think I'd rather take those twos, and I'm not so worried about the threes.
Well, and that goes, again, the 3-point shot, the reason that we've seen the boom is because over a long period of time, a big sample size, i.e., 48 minutes, yes, threes shot at a clip of 45% are worth more than twos shot at, I forget whatever the number is. So, on that timeline, that makes sense to do. But in the last 5 minutes, you've shortened that timeline, and the opportunity to miss goes.
What's the median? What's the average 3-point percentage in the clutch this year across all NBA teams?
Oh gosh,
29%.
Yeah, 29%, 29.3, I think.
What are the Suns shooting on twos in the clutch?
It's
They're shooting
whatever
like 60%,
ridiculousness.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Phoenix Suns as a
ridiculous.
team are shooting 66% in the clutch, as you pointed out just a few minutes ago, which is no other team is shooting better than 53%. It's just
Unbelievable.
nuts. It's nuts. So
think about that. Say that again. That's 13 percentage points more than number 2 in the league, which is the Magic.
yeah.
Who are 4 and 6, and again, it's just what we are witnessing, and we have to take the time to appreciate holistically this team, this run that the Phoenix Suns are on is the best we've ever seen. 2021, while personally might have sucked for some people, for Phoenix Suns fans, it's been freaking fantastic. We're just 2 wins away from a finals.
People are still grinding on the finals. I know you're aware that there is one of our podcast buddies out there who still can't smile anytime the finals are mentioned, even though the Suns, that was only their third finals appearance in franchise history, and I think the first in his woke life, right?
Yes,
Like I don't think
correct.
he was old enough to even experience or enjoy the '93 one. Might have been alive, but I don't think he could remember it. So it
Happiness is
is
a
just
choice,
funny.
Double D. Happiness is a choice.
Happiness is a choice. And yes, the Suns made their third finals appearance in team history this past year. So what makes this team so good? They're great in the clutch and they play great defense, which is not sexy. Who's sexy out there? Who's the sexiest team out there right now, John?
The Phoenix Suns. Well, it's the Golden State Warriors because of the
It's Golden
offensive.
State Warriors are
Yeah.
sexy because Steph Curry in the final minutes is going to hoist a 35-foot three-pointer, and he's going to get on every highlight channel when he makes that, right?
Yeah, if he's shooting a 3, turning around before the 3 goes in, shimmering his shoulders, he's providing these little TikTok moments for the entire league to absorb. But you're not seeing like Mikal Bridges' weak side defense, the way he's closing out on somebody, forcing them to go left when they want to go right, and then seeing DeAndre Ayton create shot deterrence for a shot that rolls off the rim. That's not going to make it to the TikTok.
So let's talk about the Warriors for just a second here. So again, in the clutch, they're going to go for 3-pointers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to go for those 3-pointers. They are 10th in the league at 3-point attempts per game in the clutch, although they don't average quite as many clutch minutes. In the Warriors' favor, they've had a lot of blowouts this year. Good for them.
Yes.
They got the best point differential in the league by double almost over the Utah Jazz, and certainly double over the Suns overall in their 20-4 start. But their record in the clutch is only 6-4. And guess what percentage they shoot on threes in the clutch when they are 10th in the league in clutch 3-point attempts in the clutch?
I'm going to guess roughly 22.2%.
Yeah.
I have the page up.
You have the page up too. I know, but I wanted to hear you say it out loud. 22.2%, which is tied for only 21st worst, 21st in the league, meaning 10 teams shoot worse than 22% on threes in the clutch. Guess what? Shooting a three-pointer in the clutch is not as easy as it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just isn't.
Exactly.
So the Suns are smart enough not to do that. So the Warriors, when it gets to be a close game, the Warriors, and they did fold on Tuesday night against the Suns in Phoenix. It was a close enough game to be considered in the clutch. I'm not sure if it officially was, but I think it was. The Suns ended up winning by 8. It was at a couple of points within 6. I'm not sure if it got under 6. But the Warriors kind of crapped the bed, and the Suns did not. So that's an example of why I feel good about the Suns in a playoff season or playoff series against the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, and the Warriors, you have to give them credit because they obviously do know how to play quality defense. That's why they have the biggest point differential in the league. They're a team that's very well coached, with the addition of Klay Thompson, who historically has been somebody who is a lockdown defender as well. We'll see how he reacts to his injury, but I'm gonna fall on the side of like the Kevin Durant side of having that kind of injury. Like this guy's unbelievably talented, so they're going to increase their defense. But when you get them down to clutch minutes, they're going to rely on offensively what they know, and that is that 3-point shot. And for all the reasons we've stated here, obviously that's not necessarily the most successful strategy for a team. Again, 10th most 3-pointers taken in the clutch and 21st most made. So they take those numbers. They can do that all day long because the Suns are just going to grind you down. They're going to hit those middies and they're going to attack the rim and get to the line and put what ultimately matters in the clutch is putting points on the board. And there's a reason why Chris Paul and 3 other members of the Phoenix Suns are top 4 in the league in plus minus is because they put points on the board, and that's what counts, and that's what wins games, and that's what we've seen. That's the turnaround between the 2018 calendar year and the 2021 calendar year. In 2018, we could get to the clutch time minutes, we just couldn't execute. We'd be the team that's trying, we'd try so hard to get to those minutes, and then we would fade because we'd fall into the Booker ball kind of moments where he just hold the ball for 20 seconds of the possession and hoist up a contested 3. Our culture and our identity in those last 5 minutes has completely changed in just a mere 3 years.
Absolutely. So let's pull the lens back out. We came into this pod to talk about who is the best team in Phoenix Suns franchise history. That's a 54-year franchise history, 53 calendar years, I believe. And this team has the most wins in franchise history during a calendar year. The reason we don't necessarily think they are best all time when we talk about them, or if we do say that, we feel like homers still, is A, because we're living in this moment. B, because the Suns got so good so fast. Just 3 years ago, they had the worst year in franchise history, as you pointed out, Darth. And then they don't have that star that gets on the highlight reels. So you got Steph Curry in Golden State. You've got Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. I almost said New Jersey. In Brooklyn, James Harden, Luka Doncic. I've never seen more highlights of a guy making a 3 with 4 minutes left in a game where they're up 10, but somehow he gets on those highlights. And they're not up 10 very often anymore.
Nope,
but anyway.
not anymore.
But the Suns don't get those guys on the highlights because Devin Booker's all about business. He's not about flash. Chris Paul pisses as many people off as he excites. Charles Barkley was likable. Steve Nash was likable, lovable. Those Phoenix Suns were this year's Warriors, basically, on going on offense, and your best defense is scoring more points on offense. Mike D'Antoni famously said that. Now the Warriors play great defense, but the highlights they get on TikTok and YouTube and the highlight shows are their offensive exploits when they make some threes and they get some dunks in transition and all that. And good for them. They're a very, very good team, really great team. And I'm looking forward to seeing them potentially in the finals next year. But as far as whether this Suns team is the best in history, part of the reason people don't think it is because we don't have that marketable star that every outlet, every market wants to see.
Yeah, and Devin Booker's not out there scoring 32 points a game. If he is, there's an opportunity for more highlights. And again, the mid-range isn't sexy. And that's where we make our living. You know, it's okay that we don't have that marketable superstar. I don't care. We're putting the points on the board. And, that's what truly matters. We're putting the wins in the win column. That's what truly matters. It's kind of like Teddy Roosevelt said. He's like, walk quietly and carry a big stick. That's
Mhm.
kind of who we are right now. We're a
Chris
team that's
Paul's
just
the
kind of
one carrying that stick around.
exactly. He's the one who's carrying the stick, and he's just
And he's
walking
using it to knock the
quietly.
ball out of other point guards' hands.
Yeah, especially in a transition at the end of the game.
Oh
But
man.
it's just we do all the little things right, and again, it's not sexy, but who cares? It's great when you see. Obviously, doing the Suns Jam session, we go live after every Phoenix Suns game. We're seeing a lot more of the opposing team fans come in just to kind of talk a little junk at the end of a game when we beat them, because they don't
Especially the
feel like
Warriors fans. Yeah.
I'll tell you, those Warriors fans, they travel well. Like, kudos to them. They show up and they're talking all kinds of junk. And, karma bit them in the butt because they lost the next night to the Spurs. So it's just like all the reasons they said, like, well, don't tell me that the Suns were
Well, they
tired.
used up all their energy against the Suns, and they had
Yeah.
nothing left for the Spurs the next
Exactly.
night.
They were focused. They were laser focused on Phoenix and the Spurs, as we saw on Monday. They have talent. They're a talented team. They're not a team that's necessarily going anywhere, but every team in the NBA has talent. And that's why, again, it's so impressive to see the Phoenix Suns operate in 2021 the way they do, considering that every other NBA team is talented. And now that the Suns have a mark on their back, they're the team that they're not resting anybody against. You go back to 93, you go back to 2007. I don't know necessarily that I would say that the league had more talent back then. I would say 93, there were more stars. I mean, you can go by, the NBA Jam kind of model and take a look at every team's star. But I think from a talent standpoint, this is the most talented the NBA has ever been. And the Phoenix Suns are dominating it. It's just unbelievable to see.
Yeah, it's just so fun. So folks, enjoy it. We're only on December 9th or December 8th when you're watching this or listening to this, December 9th or whatever it is. And then Voita's article is going up on Bright Side of the Sun for those who'd like to read about it too and look at the graphics and everything. That's going up on December 9th. Pay attention to this. This is the best calendar year in Phoenix Suns franchise history, proven over and over again by these numbers. And whether you've picked up on the Suns yet or you wish your friends would have picked up on the Suns by now, direct them to this podcast so they can hear about how good this team is compared to the Barkley ones and compared to the Steve Nash ones. It's a good walk down memory lane and a reminder that you should stop and smell these roses that are growing right now beside the road and make sure that you're enjoying this moment that we're living in.
Amen.
All right, Voita, tell us where to find you on social media and all around the web.
Fun stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Darth Voita. You can follow our podcast at Suns Jam and my co-host at Matthew Lissy, all on Twitter. And you can stop by our YouTube page to follow the Suns Jam session. We go live after every Phoenix Suns game. And you can also subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get a podcast. Look up Suns Jam session. You'll find us. And if you leave a 5-star review, much akin to Dave, we'll give you a shout out on the show.
Absolutely. So, and yep, you can find me at Dave King NBA on Twitter. You can find both John and I writing, though John not as often as he used to.
I'm sorry, I'm on the road.
On brightsideofthesun.com, the greatest fun Suns fan site out there in the history of the world. And you can find these these podcasts on the Sun Solar Panel podcast feed as you're listening to it right now. Direct your friends and get other people to listen. And we'll be back on Saturday for another live show on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today, Darth.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave. It's good to chop it up. Go Suns.
All right.